The river whispered secrets that night, secrets of betrayal, pain, and the fragile thread of trust that could either save a soul or break it forever. The moon hung low over the quiet Wyoming riverbank, casting a silvery light on the cold water. Silas Mercer, a weathered cowboy in his late 50s, rode slowly along the muddy path. His old horse, Buck, snorted softly, sensing something unusual. Silas had seen many things in his long, hard life on the frontier: gunfights, lost loves, and men who turned into monsters. But nothing prepared him for what he found that night. There she was, half hidden in the tall grass near the water's edge. A young woman, no more than 25, lay curled up like a wounded animal. Her dress was torn and dirty, her face bruised with dark marks that told a terrible story. Rope burns cut deep into her wrists, red and raw. Blood stained her sleeve from a cut on her arm. She was breathing, but barely. Silas's heart tightened. He dismounted quickly, his boots sinking into the soft mud. "Miss, can you hear me?" he called gently, his rough voice surprisingly soft. The woman stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, big brown eyes filled with pure fear. She tried to crawl away, but pain stopped her.
"Please, don't hurt me,"
she whispered, her voice cracking like dry leaves. "I ain't here to hurt nobody," Silas said, holding up his empty hands. "Name's Silas Mercer. I got a small ranch not far from here. You look like you've been through hell. Let me help you." She looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for any sign of danger. Tears welled up in her eyes.
"Clara,"
she said finally.
"Clara Whitmore. I escaped. From him."
Silas didn't ask who him was right away. He could see the terror in her. Instead, he wrapped his old coat around her shivering shoulders and helped her onto his horse. She winced with every move, but she didn't fight him. As they rode slowly through the night, Clara told him bits of her story in broken words. She had come west from Boston, answering letters from a man named Wade Harlow. He had written beautiful words, promises of a loving home, a new life on the frontier, and a future filled with hope. Clara, who had lost her parents young and worked as a seamstress in a crowded city, believed him. She traveled alone by train and stagecoach, her heart full of dreams. But when she arrived, everything changed. Wade wasn't the kind man from the letters. He took her to an isolated cabin far from town. There, he locked her up. He beat her when she cried. He forced her to sign papers she didn't understand. "You're mine now," he had growled. For weeks, she lived in fear, planning her escape every night. Finally, one stormy evening, she broke a window and ran into the darkness, falling, hiding, until she reached the river. Silas listened without interrupting. His jaw tightened with anger. He had met men like Wade before, greedy, cruel souls who used others like tools. But he kept his thoughts to himself. Right now, Clara needed safety, not more questions. Instead of taking her straight to the sheriff in town, where gossip and doubt might greet her, Silas decided to bring her to his lonely ranch. It was a simple place, a wooden house, a barn, a few horses, and open land under the big sky. No one lived there but him and his dog, Old Blue. At the ranch, Silas treated her with quiet respect. He cleaned her wounds with warm water and herbs. He gave her his own bed and slept on the floor. He cooked simple meals, beans, fresh bread, and hot coffee. He never asked too many questions at first. He just let her rest. Days passed slowly. Clara stayed mostly in the small bedroom, watching the sunlight move across the walls. At night, nightmares woke her. Wade's angry face, the sound of locks clicking. But Silas was always nearby, never pushing. One morning she came out to the porch and saw him feeding the horses. His movements were steady, patient. Something in her chest softened just a little.
"Thank you,"
she said quietly when he brought her breakfast.
"Most men would have left me there. Or worse."
Silas nodded, his gray eyes kind but guarded. "A man who leaves a hurt woman ain't much of a man at all, Miss Clara." Slowly, trust began to grow, like a tiny flower in dry soil. They talked more. Clara told him about her life in Boston, the loneliness after her parents died, how Wade's letters had felt like a light in the dark. Silas shared small stories from his past, how he once worked as a deputy in a rough town, but left after too much blood and loss. He didn't mention the old badge hidden in his drawer. But peace didn't last. One afternoon, while Clara slept, Silas found something strange in the lining of her torn coat. Folded papers. He opened them carefully. They were land deeds, fake ones it looked like. Clara's name was signed on them, but the writing was shaky, forced. The land was valuable, near a new railroad line. Wade had clearly used her to steal it. She wasn't just a bride. She was a tool, a pawn in his greedy game. Silas's face hardened. He hid the papers back, but knew trouble was coming. That same evening, a stranger rode up to the ranch. He was tall and sly-looking, with a thin smile. "Name's Boone Cutter," he said, tipping his hat. "Looking for a lost girl. Heard she might be around here. Her husband, Mr. Wade Harlow, is real worried." Silas stood tall, his hand near his gun. "Ain't seen no lost girl, and if she's running from a husband who hurts her, maybe he don't deserve to find her." Boone's smile faded. Words turned sharp, then violent. Boone drew his pistol fast, but Silas was faster with experience. They fought hard, fists, boots, and a gunshot that grazed Silas's shoulder. Old Blue barked wildly. Silas used his strength and calm to overpower Boone, tying him up and locking him in the barn. Inside the house, Clara had woken to the noise. She searched for something to protect herself and found an old deputy badge in Silas's drawer. Her heart froze. A badge? Was Silas a lawman? Or was he hiding something worse? When she saw the papers Silas had found and heard Boone calling Wade her husband, fear flooded back. She thought everything was a trick. Maybe Silas was working with them. Tears streaming down her face, Clara slipped out the back door and ran into the dark fields. Her body still hurt, but panic gave her strength. She didn't know who to trust anymore. Silas found her hours later, huddled under a tree, shivering and crying. He approached slowly, like calming a scared horse. "Clara, please listen," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "I should have told you the truth sooner. That badge. I was a deputy once. Saw too much evil. Lost too many friends. I quit and came here for peace. I found those papers in your coat. They're fake land deeds. Wade used you to steal that land. I didn't tell you right away because I wanted to give you a few days of safety first. That was my mistake. I never meant to lie. I swear on my life, I'm not with him." Clara looked at him through her tears. The pain in his eyes was real. For the first time, she saw not just a strong cowboy, but a man who had his own scars. "Why should I believe you?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Because I could have turned you over to Boone. I could have kept those papers for myself. But I fought for you instead," Silas replied softly. "Trust ain't given easy out here. It's earned, one honest day at a time." Something shifted inside Clara. The walls she had built began to crack. She realized that real trust wasn't about perfect words or pretty letters. It was about actions, about someone standing by you when the world turned dark. She took his offered hand and let him help her back to the ranch. From that night, their bond grew stronger. They talked honestly, about fear, about pain, about starting over. Clara learned that Silas had lost his wife years ago to sickness, and the loneliness had made him quiet and careful. Silas saw Clara's quiet courage, how she refused to stay broken. Together, they decided to face Wade. They rode to Fort Laramie, a busy frontier town with soldiers, traders, and a small court. Wade was already there, spreading lies. He told everyone that Clara was his runaway wife, unstable and dangerous, and that she had stolen important papers. But this time, Clara wasn't alone. She carried the real deeds and her own story. Silas stood beside her, tall and steady, telling the sheriff what he had seen and done. Witnesses from the town remembered Wade's shady deals. The truth came out like sunlight breaking clouds. Wade was arrested for fraud, kidnapping, and assault. Boone turned on him to save himself. As Wade was taken away in chains, he glared at Clara with hate. But she met his eyes without fear. "You took my trust once," she said quietly, "but you can't take my strength." The journey back to the ranch was peaceful. The open land felt different now, full of possibility instead of threat. Weeks later, Clara stood on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in gold and pink. Her bruises had faded, but the memories remained. She had a choice now. She could go back east, start fresh in the city. Or she could stay. Silas joined her, his shoulder still bandaged. "The ranch is yours as much as mine, if you want it," he said simply. "No promises, no chains, just whatever feels right." Clara turned to him, her eyes warm with new light. She had learned that life would always bring wounds, but what you did after the pain, that was what defined you. You could hide, or you could heal and choose to trust again. She smiled softly, the first real smile in months. "I'm staying, Silas, not because I have to, but because I choose to, with you." He nodded, a rare, gentle smile touching his weathered face. In the quiet of the ranch, under the vast western sky, two broken souls had found something precious. Not just safety, but real trust, built slowly, honestly, and with heart. And in that trust, they both discovered the courage to live again. Thank you for riding along on this story. Drop your location and time one more time if you'd like. And if it touched you, like, send some stars, follow, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. See you in the next tale.